The very first commandment I'm going to share with you from my book, The 10 Commandments of Child Support, Learn from My Mistakes. It just so happened to be the first commandment that's in the book, and that commandment is, thou shalt not run. Thou shalt not run. Woo! Listen. There's a reason why that's first in my book, because that was a big one for me. I don't think you understand. If there was an Olympics for running in child support, I would have a gold medal. No, better than that, I'll have a world's record, because you see, I ran for 8 years. And I'll still be running right now today if it wasn't for an unfortunate incident that ended my running career. I'm going to get into that in just a second, but before I do, I don't want you guys to get it twisted or misconstrued with me running and me being a deadbeat, because you see, I was never that. I always stayed involved in my kids' lives. I just didn't like dealing with the child support people. They were kind of aggravating, confusing, and if I'm being honest, those folk just got on my nerve. But I found over the years, there's like 3 types of guys when it comes to dealing with child support. The first type of guy, I call him the stand-up guy, or Mr. Perfect. I call him Mr. Perfect because everything kind of goes right for this guy. He's got the perfect job. He's making so much money, he don't even miss the child support coming out his check. His ex-girlfriend get along with his new girlfriend. Both their kids get along. Now they all going on cookouts and camping trips together. They sitting around campfires holding hands, singing Kumbaya and Brady Bunch songs. This brother's got a rainbow over his house all the time. The kids don't cuss or fuss. What I'm trying to explain to you, that it is absolutely sickening. I mean, perfect. It is absolutely perfect. There's nothing wrong with that type of guy. You meet those kind of people where everything kind of goes right for them. That's called the stand-up guy. I call him the stand-up guy. That's the first type of guy. Now, the second type of guy, I call him the runner. In the runner's heart, bless his heart, and that was me, he really wants to be that stand-up guy, but for whatever reasons, he finds himself running. And I found that men run for several different reasons. They run because they fear something, they don't understand something, or something that might happen that might make him a runner, like he loses his job or a crazy baby mama. You'd be amazed how fast, gentlemen, you can run over a crazy baby mama, but in his heart, and bless his heart, he really wants to be that stand-up guy. That's the second type of guy. That's the second type of guy. But now the third type of guy. That's a whole nother animal, a whole nother beast. And that is the world famous deadbeat. Yeah. Any of you guys ever heard the term, the opposite of love is hate? Well, that's not true. The opposite of love is not hate. Hate is still an emotion, so it's still in the same feeling ballpark. The true opposite of love is a word called apathy. Apathy. And what apathy means is basically a lack of feelings, no concern, no emotions, don't care. And that's what I want you guys to understand. That's the deadbeat. See, he's not fearing anything. He's not afraid of anything. This guy really don't care. And because of that guy right there, child support has come up with some real interesting systems to deal with that guy. But unfortunately, gentlemen, when we run, we look an awful lot like the deadbeat, almost like identical twins. And because of that, all the wonderful things designed for that deadbeat gets applied to the poor old runner. Things like his driver's license being suspended, liens on his property, seizing of his bank account, suspending his business licenses, even putting him in jail. Speaking of jail, I'd like to explain to you what ended my running career. I wrote a whole chapter about it in my book. The chapter's called Blah, 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 Incarceration, Blah, Blah, Blah. I'm going to give you a real short version of the story. Now, as I said, I ran for 8 years, and I got real good at running. I even developed some of my own systems, and one of my more successful systems was called the break camp system, And all the break camp system consisted of was me working a dead-end minimum wage job until child support would find me. Now, what I mean by find me, once they started garnishing my check, or should I say taking my money, I would simply just break camp. I would quit that job, go find another dead-end minimum wage job until they would find me again. But see, I knew it would take them about a year and a half to find me, and that would give me a year and a half of financial breathing room. That's the first part of the break camp system. Now, the second part of the break camp system took a little more talent, a little more skill, if you will, because I knew every 2.5 years, child support was going to call me in for a meeting. And before I go into that meeting, I would get me one crisp $100 bill, place it in my right pocket, and then I would go to that meeting. And I knew at some time during that meeting, they were going to say to me, Mr. Patterson, you seem to be getting behind on your child support payments. What in the world is going on? And then I would say to them, ma'am, I lost my job. Wink, wink. But I got a better job lined up. Matter of fact, when I get this new job, I'm going to be making so much money. I'm going to get caught up on all those child support payments. And then I'm inviting everybody to a cookout. We're going to sit around the campfire. We're going to hold hands and we're going to sing Kumbaya. And then they would say, oh, that sounds like fun, Mr. Patterson, but do you have $100 to show us that you're serious? And then I would say to them, ma'am, I don't know. I lent my cousin Pookie some money last week, and my mama got $10 from me. I got to make some phone calls and see what I can scrape up. And then at some point, I would just reach in my right pocket, hand them that crisp $100 bill, and that would conclude the break camp system. And I'm here to tell you that it was almost flawless. I mean, it was almost flawless. I'm trying to tell you that it worked every time. It was almost flawless. There was only one little bitty flaw with the break camp system. Only one little bitty flaw. And that flaw was that I was building up a debt to child support. And after about 8 years in, gentlemen, my debt had risen to say about $15,000. And at $15,000, there really should have been an alarm to go off inside my head, some kind of warning to say, hey, dummy, at $15,000, these child support folk about to get real with you. And oh, they did get real with me. They got really real. But the sad thing of it all is it got real, and I didn't even know it had gotten that real until it was just way too late. I was a day late, dollar short. But hindsight's 2020. Looking back on it all, there were 5 crystal clear red flags that it had gotten real. I just didn't see it at the time. The first red flag was when they called me in that last time, they did not call me in for a meeting. They called me into a hearing. You see, all the other years it was meeting, but this last time they called it a hearing. That was the first red flag. Now, the second red flag was the location of that hearing. The location of my hearing was way out in the boondocks. I don't think you understand. This place was like 2 bus transfers out in the middle of the woods. All my other meetings with child support was relatively close to my house. You see, I could have walked there, skipped there, rode my bike, but this hearing was way out in the boondocks. That was the second red flag. But now the third red flag, I'm almost too embarrassed to tell you because even Ray Charles could have saw this, and I don't know why I didn't see it at the time. I think because I'm a glass half full type of guy. I'm a positive person. Some call me an optimist, if you will, but the location of my hearing just so happened to be right next door to a jail. It was right next door to a jail. I didn't connect the dots. I didn't think they had anything to do with each other. Now, let's fast forward to the hearing itself. I get in the building and I get a little false sense of security because I realize that my hearing is not being held in a courtroom. No, my hearing is being held in a meeting room. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know anything about me, you should know I know all about meetings. And that gave me a little false sense of security because in my mind, courtroom equals danger, but a meeting room means, Rod, it's going to be all right. I don't know where I got that from. See, first and foremost, this was no ordinary meeting room. No, this meeting room was equipped with this 100-foot-long oak wood table surrounded with 20 black leather chairs. And occupying those 20 black leather chairs were mainly women. Head of the table was the boss lady. I call her the boss lady. Really, she was the magistrate or the judge. And when I walked in, she was reading my case aloud. Now, ladies and gentlemen, they call it a hearing because they all kind of huddle together, try to figure out what they want to do with an aggravating case. And in my particular aggravating case, I felt like I didn't need to hear this case because, you see, I had been living this case for 8 years, so why do I need to listen? So I just kind of kicked back in my black leather chair and I went into half listening mode. And that ended up being a big mistake, because, you see, if I had been in full listening mode, I would have caught a penny from God. And if for those of you who don't know what a penny from God is a lucky break, a rare opportunity, something that don't happen too often. And my rare opportunity was I had a rare opportunity to walk up out of there that day. And if I had been listening, I would have caught it. Because you see, halfway through the boss lady's these, thous, and all her blah, blah, blahs, she stopped and she looked in my direction. And she said, Mr. Patterson, there seems to be a missing paper, a missing document, a missing form out of your case file. And because of that missing paper, we can postpone this hearing to a later date. Right after she said date, that's when I sat up from my relaxed position in my black leather chair. I looked that lady dead in the eyes and I said, no, let's proceed. Right after I said proceed, that's when the fourth red flag happened, because it seemed like all those 20 people sitting in those black leather chairs, they stopped what they were doing, looked in my direction as though I had lost my ever-loving mind. Now the boss lady said with a question mark on her face, Mr. Patterson, are you sure you want to proceed? This time, I stood up. I extended my arm and pointed at her with two fingers as though I was from a scene in the movie The Color Purple. I said it a little louder because, gentlemen, I really wanted to make sure that she understood. Yes, I'm more than sure I want to proceed. You see, I hadn't lost my mind. I just wanted to get this thing over with. I want you to understand, I had my $100 bill in my right pocket. I wanted them to get to that part so I didn't have to see these 20 people for another 2.5 years. Besides all of that, we are 2 bus transfers out in the middle of the woods. I got to get all the way back to town. I got people to see. I got places I got to go. Now, the boss lady said, with a smile on her face, let it duly be noted that Mr. Patterson wants to proceed. Now, I got to be honest with you. She did throw me off with all that chipperness. So she proceeded. I returned back to my relaxed position in my black leather chair, and then she tarried on. And then about 5 minutes later, you know, I'm halfway listening like I do. I hears blah, 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 these and thou, blah, 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 incarceration, blah, blah, blah. That's when I yet again sat up from my relaxed position in my black leather chair, because you see, I am no rocket scientist, and I may not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I do have a pretty good working vocabulary, and if I'm not mistaken, that word incarceration is just another word for, what's the word I'm looking for? It's that word J. Before I could get the J out in my mind, somebody was tapping me on my shoulder, and I looked up, and it was a cop. Oh, it was a big cop, and he threw me off because he said it nicely. He said, "Excuse me, sir, would you step in the back for a second?" Now, that sounded non-threatening. I thought it had something to do with that missing paper, that missing document, that missing form. So I said to the nice Officer Shack, "Sure, I'll walk with you." Now, as me and Officer Shack are walking alongside this 100-foot-long oak wood table that's surrounded with 20 black leather chairs that are mainly occupied by women, that's when the fifth and final red flag happened, because not a one of those 20 people would give me eye contact. Matter of fact, I thought I saw one lady crying. I don't know why she was crying, but I definitely saw a tear. Soon as me and that officer cleared that meeting room and that door shut ever so gently, now with a lot of bass in his voice, he said, "Turn around, place your hands behind your back. You've been arrested for non-payment of child support." And guys, to wrap up this story, I end up having to pay $1,000 or 60 days in jail. Now, 1,000 don't sound that bad nowadays, but we're talking about back in the day when you could get a gallon of gas for like 70, 80 cents a gallon. I was in jail for 3 days until my girlfriend at the time could beg, borrow, steal to get that money to get me up out of there. But when I finally got out, from that day forward, I'm here to tell you that child support had my undivided attention. So guys, to wrap up this commandment, don't run. Don't run. You see, when you run, it only makes you look like a deadbeat. And if you look like a deadbeat, I'm here to tell you that all the wonderful things designed for that deadbeat will happen to you. So don't run. Peace. My name is Sir Rod Patterson. I hope you enjoyed my story. If you haven't got my book, go ahead and pick up the 10 Commandments of Child Support and learn from my mistakes. Really, it's a navigating tool to help you get through the system and survive. Go to my website, www.sirrodpatterson.com, for more details. And my speaking engagement, have me come out and speak to your men's group, church group, teen boys. Check out what I'm doing, and I would love to come in and serve your organization. Thank you for your time. Peace.